All right, Madhav, welcome to the GTM Pack podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
I'm so happy to be here and so great to finally meet you, Justin.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you might know this because if you followed me on LinkedIn, I'm a huge fan of Storylane, not just your product, but also your marketing. I mean, the way that you guys go about building your brand out there and doing things differently is something that really resonates with me as a product marketer prior to starting AssetMule. So I'm really excited to dig in and just get kind of a look behind the scenes, right, of how you guys approach marketing. But before we do that, maybe for those that aren't familiar with you and of Storylane, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your career background, and how you came to become the head of marketing at Storylane.
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently run marketing at Storylane, and Storylane is basically sort of like an agentic demo automation platform, and it's sort of a just an interesting way to sort of educate your buyers with like more interactive experiences, and we're used by like 4,000 plus sort of B2B companies at this point. And for me, it's like I've been in B2B SaaS for like more than a decade now. And in the past, I led a couple of marketing teams, and I think in about 22 or so, I decided to sort of go fractional for about a year. And Storylane actually came as one of like a potential fractional client, and then when I actually spoke, I was like, oh my god, these guys are doing so well, and they just weren't looking like it. That they're actually doing well, like their whole visual sort of identity sort of was looking like they were actually smaller. And so I was like, I took the full time thing. So that was sort of like the whole full circle moment. I also know the other co-founder Akash, who's also in your podcast earlier. I've known him for about 10 years from like previous roles. So yeah, that's how it happened, and yeah, and really enjoying it so far.
That's awesome. Well, I first fell in love with the Storylane product. I just love how intuitive and easy to use it is, and as I said, that's been a huge inspiration for us at Asset Mule as well. But over the last, let's say, year, 2 years, I've really seen Storylane's marketing come to fruition, and there's a couple things that I want to talk with you about today that specifically stood out to me. But the first one being just the fact that you guys do things very, very differently. And I'll give a couple of examples that I've noticed. One was the whole demo led SEO campaign that you did. I was at Product Marketing Alliance San Francisco, and I noticed that there's a lot of interactive vendors here, on the expo floor. A lot of them have speaking slots. I sat through a lot of those, and a lot of them were about buyer enablement and why interactive demos are important, and the high level stuff, and harder to distinguish, I would say, between some of these pitches, right? And then your CEO Nalan had a workshop on demo led SEO, and it just stood out as different, right? Then I went by your booth, and again, your booth experience was just completely different. It wasn't as focused on your product per se. It had this fun map, I think, that was on the sort of backdrop. And I saw that you also had like the Demo Dundies Award. So I'm always seeing you guys push the envelope and do things different. And I just wanted to kind of get from your, story, like, where does that come from, that desire to do something different? And what's your process for sort of identifying these opportunities to do something different? And then finally, I know sometimes there can be this eagerness from marketing to do things different, and then there's pushback from leadership. Like, how do you get your leadership to sign off on some of the more unconventional approaches that you might have proposed for your marketing strategy?
Yeah, no, I appreciate all of that. And I love how well aware you had of about the history of marketing at Storylane. So thank you for the introduction on that. I think I think when it comes to convincing, like, I think one thing that I will say that helps, it's just that what I've learned is that I think if you have if you're sort of selling to a higher deal size, like when your average account value is generally higher, there's more appetite for risk, and there's more room for experimentation, right? versus like a very sort of PLG product. Because I've been on both ends, selling a $50 a month product, but also sort of selling like a 25K, 30K, 50K, a year deals, right? And so when you're selling those sort of deal sizes, there is like you can try different things. So in that way, I think when you sell in sales tech, martech, especially mid market enterprise, that sort of helps a little bit in terms of like convincing leadership into trying different ideas, because you have like a larger sort of budget to get the particular account, right? But also and I'm also sort of lucky in a sense that Nalin, who's the CEO at Storylane, right? He is sort of like sold on these projects, like it was part of our initial discussions, right? And he actually believes in the culture of innovation. But I think for us, we did this sort of positioning, an internal positioning exercise on like what makes us strong, because there are things that we're good at and there are things that we're bad at for sure, like we're aware about it, right? And we were sort of identifying like our strong points. One of the things actually came out was innovation, whether that's in product or marketing or customer success, right? And that's honestly the only way we'll win in this I would say category and sort of get more customers. And so we just needed to sort of rely on like standing out and doing things differently. And so even in the product side, if you'll see, like there's just a lot of like first in category releases, and that's what we also do in marketing, sort of pushing the envelope a little bit, right? So I think when it comes to brainstorming the ideas, I mean it's been sort of an iteration of the process. Like initially it was more around, well, let's get on like a free-handed one-on-one call. We're a remote team, so we'd get on a remote call and just sort of just have a free flowing discussion. We'll take an idea and then it'll take like these 10 weird forms, and then finally something else will come out of it. Like for example, I mean, I'll give you an example, like demo Dundies, right? Like that was basically it started with the problem that, hey, we want some more advocacy from our customers, and sort of also find which are the best demos. And then we thought, hey, there are all these companies that do like these top 30 under 30 sort of global marketing leaders or whatever, right? These awards. But then we knew that everybody does it, so what could we do differently? And then that conversation led to maybe do sort of like a Dundee style show, and then that's how it flowed, right? But it was very like sort of random. But I actually tried something recently. It was actually last week. So we internally called it the lock-in, and it was basically I got the entire marketing team sort of in like a boardroom for 3 days. There was no agenda, there was no slide deck, there was nothing. It was just primarily that, what could be new projects we could do, take up in Q2 and Q3. And these are people from all sorts of like channels, whether that's brand, ads, events, outbound, ops, all of those folks, right? We're a team of 10 at this time. And it was just, cross questioning each other on ideas, cutting each other, sharing our perspectives and all. And I think by the end of those 3 days, we had like a bunch of like these sort of ideas that like could be potential like blockbuster hits, and also sort of yeah, I mean, that could work. And and I think it worked so well that we're doing another version of the lock-in with engineering like the first week of May, and then the second week of May we're doing it with customer success. So I think it's more like it's a cultural thing, right? Like if you've got
Yeah.
innovation in there, it just flows.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And having it from the top down, both the CEO and the head of marketing down really embeds it in the culture, right? And makes experimentation part of the genes of the company, the DNA of the company. I love that idea of the lock-in to brainstorm ideas. I guess one follow-up question I have for you is: so you do this lock-in, you have all these ideas that are coming up. How do you go, what's your like framework for going about qualifying which one is worth pursuing? And then what does that actual experiment look like? Do you time block it? Like, how do you approach doing it? And then finally, once the experiment is over, how do you go about like measuring it and deciding if this is something worth scaling or doing again?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing that I've seen is that if someone were to sort of come to me or anyone in their team, especially in the marketing team, like, hey, we need to sort of run more growth experiments, right? Hey, we need to figure out other ways to do that. Like, we'll be under the pressure and we'll just like at that time not have any ideas and all that, right? So I think one is ideas sort of come in all sorts of weird places, right? Like whether that's at the gym listening to the podcast, or whether that's at a conference, at like some networking thing, right? Like, just sort of keep noting down ideas like there. So right now I have like maybe like 150 sort of keep notes with like a bunch of those ideas, right? But it always, what helps is like, we it's a lot easier when you start with a problem statement, right? Like for example, with demo-led SEO, the problem statement was like my CEO came to me saying that, hey, listen, we've been we have this blog, we've been sort of growing very slowly on it. 3 years we've gone from zero to what, 15,000, 20,000 a month in traffic. But with the PLG product, that's not going to cut it. How do we get to like 100K a month traffic by the end of the year? And so that was the problem statement. And then we were like, all right, what if we try this, just wild experiment, where we just sort of add demo and remove the text, and then and we smashed that like 100K a month goal in a month and a half, right? And so I think it's more like, if you have the problem statement, same thing like what I told you about demo Dundies, right? Like the problem statement was advocacy, right? And there have been like many sort of different like ways we've done it. And then I think the next thing then what happens is that, okay, we do this one thing. There's going to be like, maybe like out of 50 things, like 5 things will work, right? You don't see the other 45 that didn't work, right? And so if it did work, we put more money into it, right? So demo-led SEO is like, okay, we got to 100K a month in traffic with 1,000 pages. What if we add another 1,000 pages? Would it still grow, right? And then you sort of continue doing so. And if there's a channel that continues scaling, it sort of becomes sort of like that scalable growth channel. So like that's what happened with us for SEO. That's what happened for us with LinkedIn thought leadership ads, with brand initiatives, event strategy, and at this point, the influencer program, right? Like that was something
Mm.
like 6 months ago. I had no freaking idea, right? Now we're at a place where we're comfortable. The more we're investing, the better results we're seeing. So that's how we're sort of running with growth experiments, I'd say.
Makes total sense, and I love that like reminder to focus on the problem statement, because I think people very much like actually building a product, they sort of jump to the solution, right? Very quickly. Oh, we need to experiment. Let's like, what are experiments we can do? And they lose track of what actually problem they're trying to solve in the first place. So it's a really great reminder, even in marketing, right? And growth, to focus on the product, or sorry, the problem, and then think about what are the various experiments that we can do to address them. The other thing that I've noticed about your marketing, which has really impressed me, is your employee advocacy. Anytime you guys are doing a new campaign like the ones we just mentioned, or a new launch like your new AI agent for building demos, my LinkedIn feed is just full of everybody at Storylane, promoting it, and not just with templated posts, really with unique posts talking about their experience and their own perspective on this new release. And I just wanted to, first of all, like share how much I admire that, because I've tried to do that in the past at companies, and it's really, really challenging to get everybody on board. Everybody's busy, and it's especially to get them to write unique posts, right? Really from their language and their perspective. So wanted to get a little look behind the scenes on that. Like, what's your process for doing that? How do you build that into the culture? Because I'm assuming, again, like you said earlier, it's part of the culture, right? How do you like prep the team to do it? And then how do you ensure, like, do you ensure that they're doing it? Do you sort of reach out to folks that aren't doing it and push them to do it? Or is it really just in the culture that you can trust that everybody's gonna post and promote it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with the, I mean, like our advocacy is primarily on LinkedIn, right? So one thing that what we've seen is that, obviously, like it has to be something that's share worthy for the team, right? So they're not going to share like just like, oh, here's a minor release, they'll share it. Like they'll share something that's actually share worthy. You can't force them. And the other thing is, yeah, sorry for the allergy, by the way. Like I have this sort of allergy.
It's that time of year, right? Where
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also
yeah,
suffer from
totally.
allergies, so I get it.
Yeah, so I mean, sort of a family. But I think what I was basically saying was that when you run an advocacy initiative, right? I think what I've seen works really well is that positive reinforcement is actually really powerful here. Versus sort of saying that, hey, we asked you to like, this post, but but you didn't, and we really need your support and all that. Like that puts them in like a sort of, almost like a blame sort of spot. Positive reinforcement, the way we sort of do it is like, hey, thank you so much for supporting it. This is the results. It really worked. Continue doing that, right? So you're sort of like building onto the momentum. So what we do, I think there's like a couple of things that we do behind the scenes, right? We 100% face the issue, right? Like we should have posts going out and everything, and there was not a lot of activity going on. And like the goal was that, again, problem statement was that how can we sort of show up anytime any of our ICPs sort of open up their LinkedIn feed, like they should see somebody from Storylane sort of there. So one is we support every team member with content creation. So we have a very sort of good, I would say, agentic workflow that is set up.
Mm.
So we use a call recording tool called Grain, right? And so all of the team members are sort of doing their different calls, and we've set up a sort of workflow where it's like the Grain recording, then goes into Claude, and then sort of writes together like these first draft posts and gives it to them off the week, right? And then they can pick and choose from them and then sort of tweak it and then post it, right? So you sort of support them with the content creation initially. Then we have a support group called an internal LinkedIn club, which is like, if you want to sort of, you're starting your LinkedIn journey or whatever, and you want support from the entire team, you just put a post there and everybody from Storylane is going to support you, LinkedIn, likes, comments, whatever, right? We also have an internal leaderboard. So we use a tool called Shield app.ai. It's basically like a LinkedIn personal profile analytics tool where you can actually have your whole team in there, and you can see, which team members sort of, trending highest in terms of impressions for the month and everything. So there's sort of like this real competition going. And then I think the last probably important bit is that I think pretty much in every all hands meeting, we actually emphasize just how critical LinkedIn is. We actually show them the data. Right now, at this point, we literally have about 50% of our pipeline coming from LinkedIn. So,
Wow.
like, we literally show them the data that, listen, like, this is why it's so important for us. And like, your support was the reason why, all of these campaigns became successful. So, when you actually, and when, that sort of reiterated again and again, not just from me, but also from like my CEO and all, right? Like, it just shows, like, it just tells the team the signal that it's just such a critical and important channel. So we actually have the entire engineering team also supporting. Like, how active engineers are on LinkedIn. Not really, right? But then they're all supporting our post. So it's been really effective to even just activate those folks led apart, like customer success, marketing, sales, that are like super active right now.
Wow, that's really cool. I think some key takeaways that I have there are really connecting the dots to show the team that this is not just an ask, but this actually drives the business, right? It connects to pipeline, right, and really delivers growth for the business. And I think by getting everybody to do it, right, top down, engineering, it's sort of, if you're not doing it, you feel like you're missing out on something, right? And it's sort of like so embedded in the culture. That's really, really cool. You talked a little bit about how you're using AI in that process. And one question I wanted to ask you was, as you think about sort of the future of marketing, I think there's a lot of things that are being reinvented right now in marketing. What are some of the things that you get really, really excited about, AI or other? And what are some greenfield opportunities that you think, if you're open to sharing, right, that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
feel like people are like overlooking, right, that are really opportunities for folks to really gain traction when it comes to growth and marketing? Yeah, I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI, I'm excited, but I'm also sort of like in a place where like I need it, but I don't know how, like there's certain areas where we are sort of understanding, but I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, my implementation is probably like at a 2 at this time. It's primarily more like co-pilots and all. And I think everybody's sort of like AI is going to be definitely there. But like, I think beyond that, what I would say is one is like, I think my understanding, I feel like investing in brand is a really good move at this time with just so much changing, search engines in sort of a tough spot, LLM sort of, constantly changing. You just want people to search for your company wherever, they sort of find information. And it's just so, so powerful and sort of a great sort of, I would say, even like a moat for you at this point, right? Despite everything changing, people are going to find you, either way, right? And even like in search, right? Like what we're seeing with is just that they will sort of click on the links with a brand that's recognizable.
Hmm.
So 100%, like I think that is one thing that there's still very few companies doing that, and people think that investing in brand is super expensive and all that. It's not. You just have to be very intentional about it, like from a culturally. But yeah, so I think that's one. The other thing I would say is like demo-led SEO is actually a good one. I see very, very, very few companies doing it. We've been talking to a couple of companies, and they've been sharing their results. It's like right now, it's like absolute. Like you go into SERPs, it's like out of the 10, there's hardly any company that's done a demo-led SEO, and it's such an untapped opportunity for us. Like we've not had a single month where our signups actually dipped or flattened, like just been growing constantly. And I feel like in 2 years it's going to be very crowded, or maybe a year from now. Right now it's a great time. And then I think I would say influencer programs are maybe they're sort of gone past the early phase. I think they're starting to grow, but I honestly feel most companies haven't cracked influencer programs yet. They're sort of like they do it, they run it with a couple of influencers and then call it off and then just sort of go away. There are very few companies that have actually figured out influencer program and sort of continuing to invest there. I think these are just two or three that are like very good in terms of economics at this point in time, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think brand is one that, gets overlooked, right? As there's more and more ways to generate growth and demand, people lean into those areas, and we forget that brand is so important. So
Yep.
that one in particular, I think, is a really great one to lean into. Now, sort of turning our attention to interactive demos. I'm assuming there's a lot of change also going on in that space as well. Same sort of question, but what does the future of interactive demos look like to you? What are the areas for interactive demos that you get most excited about? Whether again it be AI or just this movement of buyer enablement. What does the next 5 years look like for this space?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we started with like single interactive demos. Every sort of vendor came in, and then there was a support for multiple demos. And I think now we're at a place where, uh, like, I feel we are entering into an era where buyers can and are preferring to go through rep-less buying experiences in the initial stages of the deal. So, like, I mean, just for a little bit of context, right? Like, this is my personal opinion. I think the traditional inbound SDR role is dead. It's a waste of time for both parties. Honestly, it's just like if somebody's sort of submitting, for a demo, and then they just gotta like, I don't know, get on a call just to sort of get their company details and size and all that. It's a complete waste of time. So I think what I basically see is that that role's sort of getting eliminated, and I think there's sort of like this birth of this new sort of lead qualification that's coming, which we're calling agent qualified leads,
Mm,
which is sort of like a mix of like, I mean, it's sort of like a sales qualified lead plus a product qualified lead, which is actually sort of the most qualified. Somebody sort of seen the product really well, but also sort of has been qualified by somebody from sales, right? That is the perfect sort of lead to be actually talking to. And the way we are sort of doing that at this point right now, at least what over the year that you're going to see is just like an agent where you can actually talk to them, actually ask questions, and they're actually trained on the call script of your best sales rep. So you can take your gong, grain recordings, whatever, train them on how they would answer it, on the technical details. So they'd actually be performing a lot better than an inbound SDR, and then surface the right demo to the right buyer at the right time, like through that experience, right? Do the initial qualification, initial discovery demos, and then like once you feel that the buyer is actually ready to hand off to sales, that's what we're sort of calling agent qualified leads. And I feel like buyers are preferring that a lot more. You see that all the time. Like we've interviewed so many people, like you talk to people, they're just like so annoyed by just like how many people they have to talk to before that, they can actually see the product, or they can actually sort of get to the whole trial experience. And I think that's the journey that is gonna get like it's gonna keep getting repless, at least in the initial stages, and the later stages will obviously need humans in the loop. I think that's where we're heading, and yeah, I think it's an exciting time, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, very exciting. Well, Madhav, as I said at the beginning, I've been a huge fan of Storylane, of you for a while. So it's been really fun being able to chat with you and ask you these questions that I've been wanting to ask for a while. So thanks so much for taking the time, stopping by, and sharing this knowledge with us. If folks out there want to continue following you, want to see some of these examples live out there, where's the best place for them to go and follow and connect with you?
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again for the time and have a good rest of your day over there.
Thank you so much, Justin. Have a great one.